she betrayed me. And not with just some stranger. It was with an old childhood friend, one who always pretended to be close to our family. I discovered everything in the worst way imaginable. I came home early one day and found them together in our bed with our small children sleeping in the room next door. What came next was even more absurd. She showed no guilt, offered no apology. She simply packed her bags, left the children behind, and walked out. She said she needed to live her life, and then she vanished. For years, no one knew where she was, not even her own parents. I raised the children alone. Between diapers, fevers, and school report cards, I learned to be both a father and a mother. I was never perfect, but I was always there. The pain of her betrayal became my fuel. Her abandonment only made me stronger. I swore that if she ever came back, she would find no place in our lives. But fate has a twisted sense of humor, because after 7 years, she returned, knocking on the very door she had once slammed in anger. In her arms, a small boy, and on her face, a cynical smile, as if nothing had ever happened, as if she wanted a fresh start. She looked at me and said, "He's your stepson. You and our children will have to learn to live with him." And in that moment, I knew. Either she had completely lost her mind, or she was plotting something even worse than the first betrayal. But what she truly wanted went far beyond a simple reconciliation. You won't believe what she did the next day, and how she tried to turn my own children against me. Ever since my wife left, I had buried any possibility of reconciliation. She took nothing with her but her own selfishness. She didn't worry about who would care for the children, about the void she would leave, whether they would have diapers, toys, or food. She didn't even give her own children a proper goodbye. She just turned her back and walked away. I had to learn to handle it all. The crying in the dead of night, the sudden fevers, the notes from the teacher on a bad report card. It was all on me, just me and them. We became a team, broken but unbreakable. I never spoke ill of her to the children. Even when they asked why their mother had disappeared, I would just say, "She went to take care of her life." Deep down, I thought she would never come back, and maybe it was for the best. But when she reappeared all those years later with a child in her arms, claiming he was my children's brother, something inside me froze. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about respect, and she seemed to have none. Worse, she came back acting like a Sunday visitor, bringing sweets, promises, and half-baked stories. My children, starved for a mother's attention, ran to her, and I just stood there, watching it all with a knot tightening in my stomach. What she wanted wasn't just to see her children again. It was much more than that. And by the time I realized her game, she was already messing with the most precious thing I had. 7 years. That's how long she was gone. 7 years without a single phone call, without a letter, without sending a single cent for child support. And now, there she was, at my home, with a boy in her arms and a sweet, rehearsed voice, as if she were returning from a simple trip. "I just want to stay here for a few days, until I get myself organized," she said, walking in as if she still had a key. But she didn't. Not anymore. "You're not coming in." My voice came out firm. My children, one on each side of me, looked at me in confusion. Isabella, my oldest at 12, grabbed my hand and whispered, "Dad, please." Caio, who was 8, said nothing. His eyes just welled up with tears as he stared at the woman he barely remembered. But I wasn't going to back down. She feigned surprise, putting on that face she used to fool everyone. "Are you going to deny shelter to the mother of your children?" Mother? Now she was a mother? I had spent years comforting their cries, cleaning up their messes, fighting their battles. She wasn't a mother to anyone here. "You abandoned this house," I said. "It's not yours anymore?" She laughed, a mocking, venomous laugh, as if she still thought she was in control. "You can't stop me. They need me. They needed you, and you weren't here." The boy with her, who must have been about 4, watched everything without understanding. She leaned in and whispered something in his ear. In a second, he ran to my children and wrapped his arms around Isabella's waist, saying, "I'm your brother. Mommy said we're going to live here now." That's when I saw it wasn't about missing them. It was a plan, pure manipulation. She was trying to force her way in, using a child as a key. "Don't you dare use him like that," I said, my voice low. "He's not to blame for your audacity." She crossed her arms, forcing a tear. "I just wanted a fresh start with my family, but I see your heart is still as hard as ever." I remained silent. I closed the door firmly, and even with my children crying, she did not sleep in my house that night, and I didn't care where she went. However, the next morning, she reappeared early, before the kids even left for school, wearing a bigger smile, as if nothing had happened. Her face was fresh, her clothes were changed, and she had a red folder tucked under her arm. She led the little boy by the hand, and they walked into the garden as if they owned the place. Before I could say anything, she had already sat down on the porch. "I've thought it over, and I've come to the conclusion that this house is still mine," she said, opening the folder, "even if you think it isn't." She started pulling out old papers, photocopies of documents, records from when we were married. All of it expired, all of it invalid. It was a performance. And she still had the audacity to say, "If you want to avoid a scene, we can just share the space. I'll take one of the bedrooms, and the children can rotate between us." Rotate. As if this were a shared custody agreement after years of abandonment. "You're sick," I said, trying to contain my rage. "You disappear for 7 years and then show up out of nowhere, wanting to call the shots again." She sighed with that same old arrogant tone. "Don't be childish. I am their mother, and you can't just erase me from their history as if I were a mistake." She stood up and pushed the little boy forward. "And what's more, this here is their brother. Do you really think it's fair for him to go without, while your children have a house, a school, food, the best of everything?" She looked at Caio and said loudly, "You want to share your toys with your little brother, don't you?" Caio hesitated, his eyes wide, but before he could answer, my daughter Isabella squeezed my hand discreetly and whispered, her gaze fixed on the ground, "Dad, that boy doesn't even know us. He's not our family." "You're right, sweetheart. He's not," I said, then looked at his mother. "It's no use, Marina. You have nothing left here. No name, no rights, no morals, and most importantly, you do not have my respect." She took a step forward, venom in her eyes. So you're going to let an innocent child suffer just because he's another man's son? No. I'm going to prevent him from growing up being manipulated by a woman who uses her own child as a bargaining chip. That's when she lost it. She started screaming, threatening lawsuits, spouting nonsense about child support and abandonment. But I didn't flinch. You want to fight this in court, Marina? Perfect, because that's where I went 4 years ago. She froze. She tried to laugh, to mock me, but her throat caught. You went to court? She asked, as if I'd spoken blasphemy. I did, and I didn't just go. I prepared for it like one prepares for war. 3 years after you vanished, I found a real lawyer. I brought evidence, school records, medical bills, police reports, witness statements from neighbors, bank statements, everything. With all that, I obtained full, definitive sole custody of the children. Her face fell. You lost any and all legal rights over them. You can't make any decisions. Not for school, not for medical care, not even for visitation. The court saw you for what you are, a biological mother who willfully abandoned her home. On top of that, I filed a petition to have you excluded from the division of assets. It was granted. The house is entirely in my name. I also requested a preventative restraining order for psychological harassment and risk to the children, which means, technically, you shouldn't even be standing at this gate. She listened in silence, trying to maintain her composure, but the venom in her eyes gave way to rage, the rage of someone who had lost all control. She tried one last gambit. This won't stop my children from loving me. No, I said, but it will stop you from using their love as currency. And it was then she showed her true colors, trying to turn the children against me with a disgusting lie that nearly destroyed our family. When she understood, she no longer had any power over me, our assets, or any legal decisions. She went after the only thing she could still attack, my children's minds. And she started in the lowest way imaginable, behind my back. The day after our confrontation, Isabella came home from school, different, silent, avoiding my gaze. When I went to say goodnight, she said flatly, Mom said you lied to the court, that she never abandoned us. She just had depression. It hit me like a punch to the gut, but I stayed calm. Where did she tell you this? Isabella hesitated. She was at school. She waited for us to get out. She said she couldn't come to the house because you were dangerous. And there it was. The stage was set. She was now the victim, the unjustly accused heroine, the mother thwarted by the oppressive father. Worse, she was planting this seed everywhere. She posted an old photo of herself holding the children with the caption, Even though I'm being kept away, I will keep fighting for you. One day, the truth will come out. Acquaintances sent me screenshots. Some believed her. But the worst part was what was happening inside my own home. My 8-year-old son, Kaio, started asking me why I wouldn't let his mommy visit. If she was really that bad, if I wasn't exaggerating. I was losing ground in their hearts, not because of my mistakes, but because of her lies. She did more. She told the school principal I was aggressive. She called one of Isabella's former teachers, crying. She even tried to file a complaint with Child Protective Services. Nothing stuck, thanks to my documentation. But the emotional damage, not even the best lawyer can fix that. And in the midst of this chaos, I realized she didn't want the children back. She wanted to destroy me. And to do that, she would use anyone, even her own little boy. She disappeared for 3 days. I started to hope the circus had finally left town. But then, on Friday afternoon, the doorbell rang. When I opened the gate, it took me a second to process the scene. It was her son, alone, a backpack on his shoulders, his t-shirt wrinkled, and a note taped to his chest. A folded piece of paper, handwritten in blue ink. He'll have a better chance with you than with me. Take care of him. I looked from side to side. No sign of her. No car waiting. She had simply dropped the 4-year-old boy off like a package. I knelt, trying to stay calm. He smiled at me. He thought it was a game, and that just made it hurt more. But I wasn't going to fall into her trap. This wasn't a gesture of love. It was a dirty move to either force me to accept her presence or paint me as a heartless monster. I took out my phone. I called Child Protective Services directly, then the police. No drama, no hesitation. I reported everything. The history, the first abandonment, the manipulation, and now this. A patrol car arrived in less than half an hour. By then, the boy was inside, drinking a glass of milk. It wasn't his fault. One of the officers asked me, "Did she warn you she was going to leave him here?" No. "Is there anyone in her family who can take responsibility for him?" "Yes," I said. "Her mother. The woman who raised her alone. She lives here in town." They made the call right there in front of me, on speakerphone. The officer was direct. "Good evening. This is the police. Your daughter has abandoned her young son at her ex-husband's house. Are you able to come and pick up the child?" Silence stretched on the other end of the line. It was long and heavy. Then the old woman's voice came, firm but tired. "Yes, I'll go, but I'm warning you. I'm done coddling her. You're all just now seeing what I've seen her entire life." A short time later, Donna Edna arrived. She stepped out of the car as if carrying an ancient cross. She looked at me. She looked at her other grandson. And then she said, "I am so sorry for this. That child doesn't deserve to be raised by someone like her." The Child Protective Services officer noted everything. They wrote reports, filed records, and made referrals. And right there, at my front gate, in front of witnesses and the authorities, she destroyed herself. I didn't have to say a word. I just had to let them see who she really was. But even that wasn't the end. Days later, she showed up at the courthouse, trying to prove she was the victim. And this time, I had to expose everything. Even the things I had kept hidden for years, just to protect my children. When she found out I had filed a complaint, hell began all over again. First came the messages, one after another. "You had no right. You're going to regret this. You destroyed the bond I had with my children." She still believed there was a bond left to destroy. Then came the social media posts. Pictures of our older children, cropped from my own profiles, pasted alongside melodramatic captions like, "I lost what I loved most because of a vengeful man," or "My only mistake was trusting him." But when she realized none of it was working, and that even her own mother, Donna Edna, was on my side, she snapped. She banged on the school doors, trying to force her way in. She was stopped. She cursed out the principal, screaming that they would all pay dearly for this. Then she tried to corner me on the street one day when I was taking Kayo to his swimming lesson. She stopped her car in the middle of the avenue, screaming like a madwoman, while the boy cowered in the back seat. And then she crossed the final line. She went to the police station. She tried to file a report against me, claiming I was illegally preventing her from seeing the children. She lied. She said I was aggressive, that our daughter lived in fear, that I had threatened the younger boy. Lies, all of them. But they were well-told lies, the kind that make a lot of noise before they come crashing down. She forgot one thing, though. I am a simple man, but a meticulous one. A geography teacher for 17 years. A clean record. I have been taking care of my children since the day she disappeared. Every vaccine, every school enrollment, every report card, every doctor's appointment, everything filed, everything recorded. The detective looked at her accusations, and then she looked at me. Did you bring the documents? I opened my briefcase. My file was thicker than hers, and it was truer. In the end, her complaint was dismissed that same week. But my report, that became a formal inquiry, and now she was being investigated for child abandonment, filing a false police report, and disturbing the peace. And even then, cornered, prosecuted, unmasked, she had the audacity to try to see the children by force. And that's when my daughter, Isabella, said the most powerful thing anyone has ever said to that woman. She appeared out of nowhere once again, in front of the school at dismissal time. She parked across the street and hurried over, as if she were about to be reunited with a long-lost love. Arms outstretched, crocodile tears, the same cheap theatrics as always. The other parents started to stare. A few mothers whispered. She called out their names loudly, repeating them as if they were close, as if she had never vanished. When she got near Caio, she tried to touch his shoulder, but he shrank back, quiet and clearly uncomfortable. That's when Isabella, only 12 years old, took a step forward. She didn't shout. She didn't make a scene. She didn't look around for an audience. She looked that woman straight in the eye, looked at her like someone carrying 7 years of silence stuck in her throat. And she spoke. You are not the victim here. You left. You didn't call on my birthday. You left us like we were worthless. And now you show up expecting applause? You are not my mother. You are just the woman who gave birth to me. He is the one who raised me. She pointed at me. I just stood there, holding my breath, watching it all unfold, unable to move. I didn't even try to interrupt. That was her voice, and hers alone. And if you love that little boy as much as you pretend to, Isabella continued, then take care of him, but leave us in peace. Marina was frozen, her face caught somewhere between shock and humiliation. Her eyes trembled, but no tears fell. For the first time, perhaps, she heard what she never wanted to hear. It wasn't a lawyer or a judge or me telling her. It was the living consequence of her own actions, her daughter. That day, she didn't answer. She just turned her back and walked away. After what Isabella said at the school gate, she never came near us again. She didn't try to get the children. She didn't show up at our house. She made no further attempts at contact. I had no idea what path her life had taken, only that she had also disappeared from her younger son's life. Still, I went to the police station and filed another report. this time requesting a restraining order. I couldn't risk her showing up again, putting my children in danger. The court granted my request. The protective order was issued, and she was legally forbidden from coming near me or the children. It was the final punctuation I needed. From that day on, peace returned to our home. We moved on with our lives, my children and I, together, rebuilding what she had broken. The little boy, the one she left on my doorstep, was left in the care of my ex-mother-in-law, Donna Edna, a woman who, unlike her daughter, was always present, always made a point of being there. On birthdays and some weekends, when my children went to visit their maternal grandmother, I allowed them to spend time with the boy. After all, none of it was his fault. Today, I look back and see that her war was never just against me. It was against her own family, against the life she could have had, against the love she never knew how to give. I've learned to live with the scars, but above all, I've learned that nothing is stronger than truly being present. You see, some people don't just lose their family, they lose all sense of shame. And when they try to come back, they discover there's no place and no respect left for them. So, what about you? If you were in our protagonist's place, would you have let that woman back into her children's lives? Or would you have done the same thing he did? Comment below with your opinion. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to become part of our family. Until next time.